So, hi everyone, welcome. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Dora. I'm one of the organizers of Qesher, and I'm joining you from Budapest, from Hungary. And I know that many of you have been with us for even years or come regularly to our events. So, thank you so much for being here once again. And if you're joining us for the first time, it's just a very briefly about Qesher. Qesher means connection in Hebrew, and it's a project that we started together with Sebastian, who you can also see here under the name Qesher, almost 6 years ago now, just in the beginning of the pandemic. And our aim was to share about Jewish culture, Jewish history, Jewish heritage, and also the present day lives of Jewish people all over the world. So we have been inviting speakers from different cities, different countries, different continents, different regions to share about the Jewish heritage and history of their communities. And I know many of you know that from these initial few Zoom sessions grew out our book club series, which is what we also are going to present today, in which we share Jewish themed books related to our overall main theme. And this is exactly what we're going to do today. So, as all of you know, we're going to learn about the book Tasting Faith, which was written by Paushali and Samson in cooperation. They will explain exactly who did what in this book. So, we are very grateful to have both of them here with us today. I'm going to pass the word to them. They're going to introduce themselves and the book more in detail. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And after their presentation, we will open up for questions and answers from all of you. So thank you for being here. And Paushali and Anne, welcome. And please go
Thank
ahead
you.
and share with us about Tasting Faith.
Well, thank you so much, Dora and Sebastian, for inviting us and allowing us to talk about this book, Tasting Faith. My name is Paushali, and I'm an intercultural educator and geopolitical consultant for Israel. And I have my co-author, the amazing Anne Samson, who's joining us today from California. And I'm gonna share the presentation with you. Okay, you can see this. All right. So, mm, so what is this book about? Let me just quickly jump onto the book and then I'm going to introduce us further as we go along.
Sorry, Paushali, can you put it on full screen? Because now
Yes.
we still see the slides on the side.
Um, okay, I don't know why I'm just a minute. Can you now see?
It's not full screen
It's
yet.
just not full screen. We can see it,
Yeah,
but it's not full screen.
yeah. Okay. Now it should work. Yeah. Is this okay now?
It's still the same. Maybe you can
No.
reshare one more time and then
Okay,
let's
because
see.
I see a full screen, so just a minute. Sorry about that. Just a minute. Okay,
Sometimes that
I'll
helps
try
to
again.
start from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's good. Oh, it was good a second ago. 5 seconds ago, you had it perfect.
Is this okay now?
Yes, now yes.
Now it's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, okay. So that's the Tasting Faith, and at the moment you can buy on Amazon, but you can also check out the website. So, what is this book about? Now, this book tells the story of the Indian Jewish community through the life of Anne Samson, who's here right now, and her personal experience of Jewish life in India, in the diaspora, and her connection to Israel forms the heart of the narrative. Now, driven by my own curiosity, I spent countless hours in conversation with Anne, uncovering stories of history, identity, and resilience that I felt needed to be told. Parts of the book are shared in Anne's own voice, while others draw on her insights as well as my own research. Together, the chapters explore not only the past, but why these diverse Jewish stories and their connection to Israel matter so deeply in today's world. Now, what are the main themes explored in this book? Maybe I'll just share quickly who I am. And I was born in India, in the city of Calcutta, well, I'll talk a bit about Calcutta later on. But I've lived in the UK and I've lived in Germany and Singapore. I'm a German citizen and I live in Germany for the last 22 years, so a long time. But I do intercultural and geopolitical consulting. I'm very often in Israel. And I am also a food enthusiast. So I also run Indian cooking workshops um, with the hope that people will get to know more about the Indian culture through food. So, yeah, so just to let you know that I have a deep connection with India and food, and as well as the Jewish community, which I'll come to soon. And Anne is a powerful advocate of Indian Jews for years, especially in North America. And Anne will share in a brief while. So as I said, this book shines light on a lesser known Jewish community, which is the Jews of India. Now, at a time when Jewish identity is often framed as European and anti-Semitism, as we all know, has exploded globally, this story highlights the diversity of the Jewish diaspora and challenges the false narratives that reduce Israel to a colonial project. Now, why do I share what I share? Now, I grew up in Calcutta or Kolkata, which is known now, and in a deeply multicultural society where people of all faiths live side by side. Now, that experience shaped my belief in coexistence between different communities, between different faiths. And that also fuels my alarm today as anti Semitism and anti Israel hate rise globally. Now, though I did not grow up Jewish, my faith in the God of the Bible led me to a deep connection with the Jewish people and the centrality of Israel. For me, Zionism is not political, it is spiritual, historical, and rooted in scripture. Now, I'm going to pass you over to Anne, who can briefly share her background. Over to you, Anne.
Just unmute. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Anne Samson. I'm Jewish, and I grew up in India. I was born there, raised there, educated there, and married there. My years growing up in Bombay were very happy ones, surrounded by the love and support of my family, friends, and community. I never experienced any anti-Semitism or discrimination. I always felt I belonged, and that gave me a real sense of identity and security. And I could say that it truly shaped my identity. My roots were deeply embedded in the Jewish community. And I was raised to always believe that one day, like our homeland, we would be returning to our homeland, which was in Jerusalem and what we call Israel today, and what was Israel in the past. After I moved to Canada, to Toronto, my husband and I moved here in 1966. I, at some point, was granted a sabbatical that allowed me to return to India and to explore the history of the Jewish communities that I belong to. So I did a truly in-depth study at that point. Sharing that knowledge about my heritage has always been my passion. I've delivered lectures, classes on the Jews of India, PowerPoint presentations, inspiring people of all faiths, not just the Jews, to connect with this rich and vibrant history.
Okay, so in this book, what you'll find is through Anne's own words as well as mine. We will take you through Anne's childhood in India to her life in Canada, her connection to Israel, as well as the rich culinary traditions of Bene Israel and Baghdadi Jewish communities in India. And alongside her story, this book also preserves the treasured Indian Jewish recipes passed down through families and friends. Now, one other thing before I hand you over again to Anne is that my curiosities about the Jews who moved east after the destruction of the Second Temple and not west, that curiosity led me to explore the Indian Jewish history and ultimately to Anne Samson. And her journey of identity, resilience, and belonging in the diaspora as a woman of color mirrors my own experience living in Germany as Indian. So, this is why I want to share our story and Anne's story, and also to preserve a forgotten Jewish narrative. So, let's go further. Okay, so who are the Jews of India? Now, many of you may know, but many of you may not know. But we have several different Jewish communities in India. The Kochini, which is one of the earliest ones, then Baghdadi, Bene Israel, Bene Menashe, which is in the northeast of India, Bene Ephraim, which is in the state of Andhra Pradesh or Telangana in kind of southeast India. And yes, so, but for the purposes of this book, we are going to be focused on the Baghdadi and the Bene Israel communities, because that's Anne's heritage, and she'll talk more about it. Now, this is a verse from the Megillat Esther in the Bible, and this is just to show that the Jews of India didn't just turn up, but it's even mentioned in the Bible that the Jews existed even in the Persian Empire times, because there were Jews from India to Ethiopia. So, just to mention that this is an ancient community. This is not just, people in India and some of them may have converted to Judaism or whatever. No, this is an ancient community. Okay, so then over to you, Anne.
Okay. Before I go into the pictures that you're looking at, let me give you a little background on the history, briefly, of the Bnei Israel and Baghdadi communities. The arrival date in India of the Bnei Israel is debated between 175 BCE, which was proposed by Chaim Samuel Kehemker, who was a leader within the Bnei Israel community, who wrote the very first book on the history of the Bnei Israel. And then later, a thesis was done by Shalom Samuel, who, in his master's thesis, did a lot of research and concluded that really the Bnei Israel came earlier. They came in around 730 to 732 BCE. So, in other words, they came prior to the Second Temple, according to him, much earlier. Okay. In both instances, the Israelites chose to escape by sea and were making for the port of Ophir on the west coast of India, with which they had trade relations during the time of King Solomon. Because one of the things they brought back were peacocks. And peacocks are indigenous to India. So it was obvious that they had been to a port on the west coast of India. When they were off the coast of India, there was a severe storm that blew them off course, and they were shipwrecked on a small island just off the coast south of Bombay, or what is Mumbai today. And the villagers living in that area brought the survivors and bodies to the mainland when the storm abated. Having lost everything at sea, their traditions were passed down orally from one generation to the next. They truly practiced what I refer to as biblical Judaism. That is, Judaism as it existed prior to all the changes that were made during the Second Temple. The Baghdadi Jews included Jews from Iraq, Yemen, Persia, Syria. They all came to India in the late 1700s and early 1800s. They were fleeing persecution in those countries. They settled primarily in Bombay and Calcutta. Now, I was born during the Second World War in 1941. Now, these are pictures of me as a baby on the far left. Then the middle picture is I'm approximately about 10 years old. And on the right is a picture of my parents and myself as a little girl. Okay, can we move on to the next slide? Thank you. My mother was Matucha, or Matilda Aaron. She was a Baghdadi Jew. And my father, Menachem Solomon Chincholker, was a Ben Israel. This is a picture of Solomon. In 1962, Solomon Samson Kilekar and I were married at the Magen David Synagogue in Bombay. To the right are my parents on my wedding day. My mother's mother was from Iraq, and my grandfather was from Yemen. On my father's side, both grandparents, were Bnei Israel. We can move on. Okay, this is the picture that just shows us within the synagogue under the chuppah, and it's the Shiva Brachot during our wedding ceremony. These are members of our two families. On the top left is my Yemenite grandfather, whose Hebrew name was Said Nissim Aaron. Bottom right is my grandmother, Hanum Aaron, and she was the Iraqi grandmother. On the bottom left is my Bnei Israel grandmother, Penina Solomon Chincholker, wearing a sari. Above her is my mother-in-law, also wearing a sari. Her name was Rebecca Samson Kilekar. Top right is my father-in-law, Ezra Samson Kilekar. He was an excise inspector and first worked for the British and later the Indian police. The silver Kiddush cup on the far right belonged to my Yemenite grandfather and is 100 years old now. We use it lovingly every Shabbat and on holidays, except during Passover. Now, this is a picture of David Sassoon and three of his sons. To the left, you've got Elias. In the middle is Abdullah, who changed his name to Albert later. And on the far right is Sassoon. David Sassoon settled with his family in Bombay in 1832. He was a businessman, and the Sassoon family became wealthy benefactors of both the Baghdadi Jewish community in Bombay and the wider community. They built 3 synagogues, 2 in Bombay, the Magen David in 1861, and the Knesset Eliyahu in 1884. They also built the Ohel David Synagogue in Pune in 1863. It is commonly referred to as Lal Deva, which is red synagogue or prayer place. And that's because the entire synagogue is made up of this really dark red brick. He built the Jacob Sassoon Free High School, the Home for the Aged, the modern Port of Bombay, textile mills, hospitals, etc. I could go on and on. Many of their charities and trusts are still operating today. Their trading empire finally stretched from Shanghai all the way to England. They were called the Rothschilds of the East. In 1947, when the British left India, the Sassoons left too and went to England. Later, many of them were knighted. Now we come to the picture on the right. It's a very interesting picture because it shows a little known fact that many European Jews fleeing Nazis in Europe found a safe haven in India thanks to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who forced the British to take them in. They were professionals, such as doctors, dentists, scientists, etc. They were welcomed and they worked in their respective fields. When the war ended, they left for the United States, others went to England, and some to Australia. Okay. When we arrived in India in 1966, my husband and I unfortunately found that our reception and acceptance by the existing Jewish community was a very negative one. They did not believe we were Jewish. That was number one. And their reason was because they maintained we did not first look Jewish, and secondly, there were certainly no Jews in India. This made me realize why the history and existence of Jews in India was extremely important and must be shared with the wider Jewish community. And this became my passion and mission in life. My Indian degrees, of which I had two, were not recognized in Toronto, and I chose to obtain Canadian degrees. I received a BA in sociology and a Master of Science in Education across the border in the States. This paved the way for me to become a school principal. When I was given a sabbatical in 1977, I went to India and did an in-depth study on the Jewish communities there. On my return, I became an advocate and a voice for the Jews from India, and I have done countless presentations, both locally and internationally, and many on Zoom, to share our rich history and culture. I've done the history and sociological structure of the Indian Jewish community. I've done presentations on traditions and practices. I've done presentations on foods, because many people are interested in foods. But two experiences in Toronto had a profound effect on me. First was that our two daughters were very badly treated at the Jewish day school that they attended, and also at a conservative synagogue that we joined. They were so unhappy that they asked to be transferred out to public school, and they came to us one day and said, we really don't like going to synagogue. We don't want to come. And then we had an experience where a Bnei Israel family suddenly lost their eldest son to hepatitis. We had a very hard time securing a cemetery plot in the Jewish cemetery. Every Jewish organization my husband and a Canadian friend went to said, how do we know you are Jewish? How can we bury you in a Jewish cemetery if we don't know you're Jewish? Finally, they went to Chabad, and Chabad, bless them, gave a plot with no questions asked. So there appeared a day when our daughters came to us and informed us that they wanted nothing to do with the Jewish community and would not be coming to services with us any longer. This serious predicament led me to approach a few Bnei Israel families to work together to begin our own high holiday services. We couldn't afford to join the synagogues as new immigrants in those days, and we hadn't attended any services for several years. I wanted to prove to our children that they had nothing to be ashamed of and had a great deal to be very proud of. This is how Congregation Bina was established. We have many Bnei Israel families and members who have joined us over the years. We have one family from the husband is from Cochin, and a few Ashkenazi families have decided to join us as well and have been with us for years. We have held our own high holiday services for 48 consecutive years. We have our own cemetery plots in 2 Jewish cemeteries now. And today we are recognized by all the Jewish communities, and our children are now running Congregation Bina. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, this is just a picture to show you of our family, my family, of at my younger daughter Fleur's wedding. On the far right is Fleur. Beside her is her husband Ari, who grew up in Israel and then came to Canada, and he's originally from Lithuania. In the center, there's my husband and I, and in front of us is our first grandson, Mitchell, who's the son of our elder daughter, Sabrina, and her husband, Mark. I decided that I should show you something that is not traditional in the Ashkenazi culture. This is more in the Sephardic and Indian culture, where before the wedding, the night before, we do a henna celebration. And so the picture on the far left shows my daughter Sabrina's henna. And because I'm partly Iraqi and partly Bnei Israel, we did the henna ceremony in both traditions, okay, which was interesting. And my girls wanted to wear an Indian costume. They didn't normally, but for the henna, they insisted they wanted an Indian outfit. So Sabrina's outfit was sent to me by a friend from India. Okay. Moving to the top right is a picture of Sabrina in her outfit. And the bottom left is Fleur in her henna outfit. And she was dancing with a lot of girls after the henna was done. So that sort of, it shows you the combination of both the Iraqi, because my friend Rachel on the far left is an Iraqi Jew, and her daughter, who's holding the bowl, is an Iraqi Jew, and my girls are a mixture. This is a picture of my Passover Seder plate. It's a very funny story because my father was sent to Jamaica one summer on work, and he took my mother with him. And when they were leaving Jamaica, in the duty-free shop, my mother bought the Seder plate. Okay, so it became our Seder plate here. And everything you see is what we use in India. Okay, there's the haraset, there's what you call the salt water. We used to use lemon juice. And then there's the greens that you need. And then there's the shank bone. We don't put a small little shank bone. We want the whole shank bone with the meat. Okay, and I have to buy that ahead of time. And then, of course, the eggs. And on the right is my parents' Hanukkah. So that Hanukkah is now, I don't know, approximately 85 years old. Okay, Paushali.
Okay, so from Canada, I'll come back to India because I do want to share a little bit about the city of my birth, that is Calcutta or Kolkata. Now, Calcutta is a powerful example of Jewish-Indian coexistence. Now, there are landmarks like Ezra Street and Esplanade Mansion. Anybody who's from Calcutta would know these. But growing up, I did not know that they were Jewish landmarks. I just thought they are like post-colonial, British-built things. Like so many things, especially in Mumbai and Kolkata or Bombay and Calcutta, there are many famous landmarks which were actually Jewish built, but somehow Indian people grew up thinking they are remnants of the British past. Okay, Calcutta has also two very beautiful synagogues. which reflect the once thriving Jewish community woven into the city's fabric. Then I have to talk about, you see the cakes, photos of the cakes and the confectioner's Nahum, which is a very famous bakery in Calcutta. It is owned by the Nahum family, who's from Baghdadi Jewish, so from Iraq originally. And I happen to know one of their family members who lives in Jerusalem. So this bakery is a beloved bakery in Calcutta. Anybody who's born in Calcutta or have lived some time in Calcutta will know this bakery. And you don't have to be Jewish or any particular faith, but everybody, it's iconic and it's a landmark in itself in Calcutta. And what Nahum's Bakery is known for is, so it's a Jewish bakery and it's known for selling Christmas cakes, fruit cakes, which was loved by everyone, whether it's Hindus, Muslims, Christians. And this in itself is like what Calcutta is about, and that's why the Jews, mainly there were Baghdadi Jews in Calcutta, and they felt very comfortable there. And they also had like two Jewish institutions, the Jewish Girls' School, which was quite popular, but since the 1970s, most people went on further to the English speaking, the Commonwealth countries, like a lot of them in the UK or Canada or Australia in particular. Um, but on the right, you see this school called the Elias Meyer Talmud Torah School. Now, it's very interesting because it's a Jewish school. I mean, Talmud Torah School, I mean, what else could it be, right? But when I was last in Calcutta, like a couple of years ago, and I was surprised to see the only people, the mothers who were picking up their kids were all women in black hijabs. So they are strong Muslims sending their kids to an openly Jewish school. So this is how also the Jews have lived in India, which, Anne has written in the book as well. People of all faiths, there was this sense of respect for each other's faith and communities, without assimilating, but each one had their own faiths, which I find quite special about India. That's why there was never any history of anti-Semitism. So this is quite special about Calcutta, and I did want to mention it. Moving on, I have to just jump to this topic because it's very relevant for us today. As I said before, tasting faith is not just preserving a particular culture and history, but it's also how that can be connected to our times today. Now, we had identified a few challenges that was mainly like before October 7th. Maybe things have improved a bit as far as the Jewish world is concerned, but a lot still needs to be done. So what am I talking about? Some of the challenges that were identified were, so the Jewish diaspora is incredibly diverse, yet the mainstream narratives often focus on the European or Ashkenazi Jews, marginalizing communities from India or even the Middle East. And if you go to Israel, most of the people are from Middle East backgrounds or have lived in the Middle East and North Africa. Now, this narrow view often fuels misconceptions, portraying Jews as monolithic European people, and this has sometimes been even misused to delegitimize Israel. So, non-European Jewish histories like those of India, Persia, Yemen, and Morocco are largely overlooked in education and public discourse, risking erasure of their unique cultures, migrations, as well as resilience. Now, while the Holocaust rightly dominates Jewish memory, and it's one of the darkest chapters in human history, what has happened is that it has inadvertently overshadowed other important events, such as the Farhud pogrom in Iraq in 1941, or the larger expulsions of Jews from Arab lands, or even forced conversions in Spain and Portugal, and even in Goa, India. So, the Holocaust has its place, of course, but it has unfortunately also led to the erasure of non-European Jewish history. So that was one of the challenges, which we wanted to highlight. And so some of the recommendations that we did, I'll just quickly go over this, is that more needs to be done in the curriculum in an education level. More awareness needs to be brought about, um, not only for the non-Jews, but also within the Jewish communities. You heard from Anne right now, yeah. And even now, when I talk to many people in North America, or I live in Germany, so every time I went and talked to my Jewish community in the city I live in, an initial reaction was like, what, Jews of India? There are no Jews living in India, So this was the first reaction. And we wanted to change that. And so I'm very happy to actually share that together with the Jewish Unity Through Diversity Institute, and some of us are actually, we have started a big initiative called Expo of the Jewish People. It's self-explanatory, it's Expo of the Jewish people, where we are going to exhibit the Jewish cultures from around the world, wherever the Jews have lived. And it's going to be a big exhibition in Jerusalem, planned for summer next year. And it's going to be an immersive experience of Jewish cultures, wherever the Jews have lived worldwide. They have contributed, but they've also absorbed some of the rich cultures of the countries that they've lived in, so which can be seen in food, in henna, in music, in dance. So we want to have a platform where we can exhibit all these fantastic, rich Jewish cultures. So it's called Expo of the Jewish People. So that's one thing that's come out of the recommendations, from the challenges that we identified as an education, really, to both Jews and non-Jews. Now I'm going to talk about Zionism and why Israel is important, and Anne is again going to share some personal experiences. Now, Israel holds profound significance for Jews worldwide, connecting communities across time and geography, including those who lived for centuries in India. For Indian Jews, Israel represents ancestral history, culture, and identity. Now, despite thriving in India, where anti-Semitism was rare, Indian Jews maintained a spiritual longing for their homeland, for their ancestral homeland, expressed in traditions like ending the Passover Seder with next year in Jerusalem. Now, the modern state of Israel, established in 1948, fulfilled this historic and spiritual connection, uniting Jews across the diaspora in shared heritage and purpose. So now, Anne, you're going to share a bit about why some of your family moved to Israel and how their experience was. You have to
You need to unmute.
Okay, thank you. The Jews of India, as children and even as young adults, we were always ingrained with the fact that we were a guest people living in India, that it wasn't our homeland. It was the land we were born in, where we grew up, and we loved India. And I still do to this day because it treated us so well. And I have a lot of friends there, but it wasn't where we eventually wanted to be. And Leshana Haba Yerushalayim, that was the key, that next year or sometime we will be back in Jerusalem. That is our homeland. And so that was how we were raised. Our attitude towards Israel was that it would eventually be our homeland. Indian Jews in Israel, unfortunately, let me start with the picture because that precedes it. This is a picture of my dad's cousin, Daniel Goslin, okay, and his family. And I took this picture in the 1970s. He and his brother Walter went to Israel in 1947 and settled in Kfar Blum. They fought in the War of Independence and all the wars that came after. And his family, I know that his daughter, one daughter, still lives in Kfar Blum. The other children some of them have moved to other places in Israel. But it is good to know that there were Jews there prior to the War of Independence from India. And they did contribute to the building of Israel. However, once Israel was formed, they the we consider, because of that, in the 1950s, the Bnei Israel began to make Aliyah, firmly believing they were finally going home. Unfortunately, they were not well treated in Israel, and they had never experienced that before. So several of those families returned to Bombay, unfortunately. They experienced, over the years, the Bnei Israel community in Israel have experienced a lot of discrimination. And they have fought for their rights because their Jewishness was doubted by the rabbis. But they continued to fight and never gave up. And finally, the issue was settled by the Knesset, along with the chief Sephardi and Ashkenazi rabbis. An official letter was finally written by the chief Sephardic rabbi, Ovadia Yosef, stating that the Bnei Israel are authentic Jews in every way. And Paushali and I put a copy of the letter into the book so that everyone could read the letter. And we are hoping that, that would settle the problems that they have faced, because when they wanted to get married, often the Orthodox rabbis would refuse to perform the marriage ceremony because one of the party was an Indian Jew, of Bnei Israel. The Cochin Jews were fine. They were accepted because they had written historical records. Okay, so they were good. But the Bnei Israel, having been, separated from the mainstream of Judaism way back, didn't have the records that, if they had, would have helped them tremendously. They passed down that oral tradition, and even though they practiced kashrut, they practiced, all of the rituals, the holidays, it wasn't good enough when they went to Israel. I think that's all I will say at the moment about this, until we have questions.
Yeah, so I'll just we can just quickly run through this section and then we can take questions. Okay, so India is also a land of settlers actually, and we've had different waves of settlers coming and to India, and also bringing their culinary heritage and ingredients, such as like Portuguese, they got green chilies and tomatoes to India. Then different people got different things. So now what Jews did when they arrived in different waves, they, keeping with their kashrut, the Jewish dietary laws, they adapted to Indian cuisine using the spices. We are known for our various spices, as well as like using ingredients which were readily available in India, such as green chilies and green coriander, which you see in the pictures, and a lot of use of the whole as well as powdered spices. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention here is also that not only did they adapt and it became like a fusion food of Jewish culinary heritage or dietary laws with Indian food, based on also wherever they lived in India. But the Baghdadi Jews, for example, they even took back the mango to the pickled mangoes back to Baghdad, and then eventually it became this very famous street food with the chutney called amba, which is a condiment with pickled mangoes, and their sabih, this Iraqi Jewish sandwich with amba. So there's been like back and forth of exchange of food and so on. Now, Anne is going to share a bit about the Shabbat among Indian Jews, as well as maybe quickly on the Malida, because it's very...
Yeah, Friday night was extremely important to the Jews, and families met around the dinner table to light the Shabbat oil lamps and chant the prayers and sing the songs. For Kiddush, we all first soaked and then boiled currants and extracted the juice at home because we didn't get bottled Kiddush. Okay, so you had to make it at home. Even hamutzi, we would get hamutzi from a bakery that was run by a Jewish, Iraqi Jewish man, and he had a tandoor, and he would make these Yemenite breads, the flat bread. And that's what we would use as hamutzi on Friday nights. The Bnei Israel would make hamutzi at home, and it would be a crispy chapati, not the usual soft one. The Iraqi Jews usually prepared one fish dish and what they called kubba or kubbe, with the meat-filled dumplings, and they would cook it either in a sweet and sour sauce or spicy curry with rice, vegetables, and salad. The Bnei Israel also prepared fish, chicken, rice, vegetables, and salad on Shabbat night. It was the only night many families ate chicken. Almost everyone attended Shabbat morning service for many years. For Shabbat lunch, however, the Baghdadi Jews made hamim with chicken, rice, and spices, just like the Ashkenazi Jews do chulent. You had to make something to eat for lunch on Shabbat, on Saturday afternoon. But the Iraqi Jews made chutney, and it was called hilbe. It was made to accompany the hamim, and they used fenugreek powder, okay, to make that. On Saturday nights after Havdalah, the Bnei Israel often held a Malida, and that's what you see in this picture. It was called the Eliyahu Hanavi ritual. It is a Thanksgiving service where we thank Hashem for all the good things that have happened to us. This ceremony was held on all happy occasions, such as an engagement, at the henna celebration, or recovering from a long, serious illness. It was developed by the Bnei Israel since they no longer had the temple where offerings could be made. So they came up with this idea. It is adopted from the chapters of Leviticus, Vayikra, as was the practice of the Kohanim. And so a platter containing sweet scented flowers or cloves, which you use for Borei Minei Besamim, 2 fruits of the trees, such as dates and apples, for Borei Pri Ha'etz, and 2 sets of fruit from the soil, such as banana and melon, for example, for Borei Pri Ha'adama. If there is a new seasonal fruit to be had, you could include that and do a Ha'etz or Ha'adama, depending on what it is. But the base of it, as you can see, is really what they used was parched rice, sweetened with sugar and raisins and finely cut pistachios. And this is the meal offering called Malida. That means sharing generously. And we recite the blessing Borei Minei Mezonot. And the ceremony is concluded with the blessing to the younger generations by the elders of the community. And it is the blessing of Jacob to his grandchildren, Ephraim and Menashe, sons of Joseph.
Okay, so in our book, we actually have quite a few recipes. Now, this is just an example of also what we have, like a spicy curry with chicken or lamb. And we have several recipes from Anne, some of our friends, and some of mine as well. So very interesting. And just one note, this is also Anne's biryani recipe. Now, biryani is a rice and meat dish. I'd like to point out that in India, in non-Jewish India, biryani is typically made with meat marinated in yogurt and then cooked. But the Jewish version is obviously different because we don't mix meat and milk. Then there is also example of like the Meshduldit Haroset recipes and lots of different recipes. And this is very special. Maybe you can say a word about
this is just a very special puri made by the Bnei Israel at Yom Kippur. And it is it's filled. It's the crust is 7 layers, and there are specific steps to end up with 7 layers. And it is made with all-purpose flour or refined wheat flour called maida. And the filling is called cannoli, but it is made with soji, which is semolina. It is mixed with clean chopped almonds, pistachios, cashews, and pine nuts. You can add whole currants or raisins, that's optional. And the frying is done in ghee, which is clarified butter. Making these puris is a long process, but if you do it often, you'll get very good at it.
And it's delicious.
It's delicious. It really is.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our presentation, and this is just a quote from actually a Indian Jewish writer, a food writer, which is food is memory, food is culture, food bonds families and communities. Indeed, it does, and not just among the Indian Jews, but Jewish communities worldwide. So, yeah, it's available on Amazon for the moment, and if anybody wants to stock it in their stores, please be in touch with me. Okay.
Thank you so much, Paushali, and Anne, for sharing your stories and your book with us. It's been really, really interesting to hear you share all these stories. And I'm sure everyone has learned a lot. So now I'm going to go and read some questions. And if there are more questions, please, everyone, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to ask as many as possible. One question was from Shelley. Are the pictures that you showed, are they in the book? Does the book have images?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, they do.
Okay. And are they in color or in black and white?
both.
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 Exactly as we showed
They're
it.
in color. A lot of them are in color.
And you have the book there.
I have the book
You can
here,
show it to us
and
how
I
it
can show
looks
you.
in
Yeah, a
in real
lot of
life.
the pictures are in color. So it's exactly the way you saw it on the slide. For example, the cedar plate, since I opened it to that page. Okay. Even the pictures of my family members. Unfortunately, the writing at the bottom of each to say who they are, you may need a magnifying glass. Okay. Yeah.
Very
It's
nice.
really tiny. Yeah.
Thank you. Um, Okay. You spoke about the Sassoon family, and someone had a question if it's the same Sassoon family who owns the oldest Bible and now lives in Tel Aviv.
I don't know really. I can't positively say whether it is or isn't. I know that the branch of the family is in England even today. Okay. And but I have no idea where they've gone from there.
Okay, thank you. Um, is the Malida recipe in the book, and do you have an explanation about the Malida in the book?
Yes, there is a detailed explanation about the Melita, and there is no recipe. But if you want to know how to make the parched rice or any other, with the parched rice, I have a recipe. I didn't think to put it in the book
No,
of
I
how to
think that
make it.
the assembling thing is there, not a
Assembling is
recipe of the
there,
parch
but
rice,
how to
but
make the parched rice,
no,
Paushali,
that
did
is
we
not
put it
there.
in? That's not there.
No.
So maybe what I could do is I could send that part of it to you all, and you could, Dora, you
Yes.
and Sebastian can then post it if you like.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay, thank you. So the next question is, how did the two of you meet?
Ask Paushali.
That's an interesting story because, as I said, I'm a very curious person and I just keep meeting people all over the world. It was actually through, I just felt like um, taking off to Lisbon once, and I met a Jewish guide there who then we talked about many things, and I was very curious to know about the um, Jews who were there in Goa, but who got converted, forcefully converted to Catholicism. That's why Goa is a state in Western India, which is still majority Catholic, maybe. and a lot of Hindus. So that led me to a lady in Mumbai and Goa, who was discovering her Jewish roots, who found out that in her family they were Jewish. And by the way, it's the same thing with my family as well. And then she led me to Anne, and then that's how we connected. So it's kind of like a, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. It was during COVID that
Mhm.
I was involved in a Mizrahi Sephardi Jewish speaker series. Alan Herman of the Canadian Institute of Jewish Research, headquartered in Montreal, got in touch with me and asked if I would host a series. And so we worked together and we hosted a series from quite some time and focused on various small Sephardic and Mizrahi communities. And we covered Barbados, Zimbabwe, Jamaica, and we also had Cheryl Rebello, whom Paushali was referring to from India, who actually spoke to us about her research on the Jews who had escaped the Spanish Inquisition and were living quietly in Goa. But when the Portuguese court took control of Goa and that area around Cochin, they actually reinstituted the Inquisition there, and those families were all killed, except for one boy who escaped, and he actually spoke I would say 2 years ago, maybe, on Kulanu.
Thank you. There are still many questions, so I'll try to read a few more and let's see how much we can get through. So Diane says that, as I recall, biryani originated in Hyderabad. Do Indian cooks make vegetarian biryani?
They do,
Yes,
they definitely do. And biryani is actually different also in different parts of India. So the Hyderabadi biryani is more spicy. Then there's the Lucknowi biryani, the Calcutta biryani, where I'm more used to, is pretty mild. So, but there's also vegetarian biryani. But biryani itself actually it comes from a Persian word, fried rice, so that somehow got transported to India, and every
India.
community developed its own. So,
Thank you. How many recipes are in the book?
um, if I'm not, if I remember right,
Yeah,
about
I didn't count.
30 or 35. Yeah.
Okay, great. Why is the Kochini community not mentioned more in detail?
Well, I had mentioned in the beginning as well that for the purposes of this book and presentation, we are going to focus on the Baghdadi and Bene Israel communities because of Anne's heritage. So, and there have been books written about Kochini Jews. So,
Yeah,
Thank you. I just want to say that there are many, many comments congratulating you and saying how wonderful it was to hear your stories. Yes, let me see if there are many questions. I'm trying to just pick out a few that we still can have time for. What are your favorite dishes, each of you?
mine is hamim. I love the Saturday afternoon meal, and I love biryani.
me too, actually. And the lamb curry, the
The
lamb,
lamb curry, yeah,
that's also very
yeah.
good. Mm.
In India,
Thank
because we of the Hindus, when we were growing up, we never ever ate beef. Okay, we never killed the cow and had beef.
Thank you. How do you ensure your children are aware and proud of their wonderful background?
I did it through establishing Congregation Bina, and my kids have attended the services there. So even though my husband and I joined another conservative synagogue and have been members there for 40 years, we are there regularly we used to be there regularly for Shabbat and all other holidays. But the moment it came to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, etc., then we never attended, even though we paid all our fees, because we did Congregation Bina. and we did our own services, and it's done in the traditional way we did it in India. So it's long, more orthodox in that sense. The only difference is we don't have a mechitza. When we started it, there was a discussion of whether we should or shouldn't, and the majority felt that families should be allowed to sit together if they so desired. So that's the only difference, and our children are carrying it on, and I gave them permission to do so only on condition that they all do it in the traditional way. The melodies have to remain in the prayers.
Thank you. Are there still Jews in India in general? There were questions about Cochin and Goa, but if you can just share us a bit, which are current day Jewish Indian communities that are still active in which cities and which communities are?
The majority of Jews today live in Bombay and the suburbs of Bombay. And all over India, you would say there are less than 5,000, could be, even less than what I'm stating, but less than 5,000 Jews. When you consider that the population of India today is about 1.34 billion people, with the largest population in the world, having less than a few thousand is like a drop in the ocean.
There's
Okay,
one
there are
thing
no
about
Jews left in Calcutta,
right.
Paushali,
No,
none
there are
left.
three. I think there are three, but
Are there three?
there's
But
no
nothing
Jews.
is running. The synagogues are closed. The same in Cochin. A few years ago, there were two. I'm not sure if they are still alive. They were older. But the synagogues are all closed. And of the 42 synagogues built all over India, including what is now called Pakistan, which was part of India, only about 15 to 17 are sort of officially running. They can't get a daily minyan, many of them, but they do get people for the holidays.
So Delhi also, New Delhi, the capital city, also has a synagogue. The rabbi is a Bene Israel man, but it's also a small synagogue. I was there when I was last there in Delhi. I always go there. Um, Actually, quite a few non-Jews are attending simply because they
Yeah.
are curious, and in Delhi, actually, there are two Chabad houses. The Chabad houses, which are obviously not run by Indian Jews, but they're Chabad emissaries sent, but they are very popular both among Jewish travelers and Indians, local Indians. So it was so popular that they had to start a second Chabad house in New
Madhas,
Delhi.
yeah. And
And
the little,
yeah,
sorry, Paushali, the little prayer house, the Judah Ham prayer
mhm,
place that you mentioned
mhm,
is was always full at the high holidays because members of from the different countries that were at the
right.
embassies in Delhi would all come there for high holiday services.
Yeah. And
Thank
one point about Bene Menashe, because there was a question I also saw about the
you.
Bene Menashe. They are in the northeast part of India. They call themselves like after they're one of the 10 lost tribes. And actually, the government of Israel declared just a couple of months ago that by 2030 they will get all the Bene Menashe to Israel. So that was an official government statement.
They've gone through
You.
a conversion process.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna read like a couple more questions and then we will close for today. So does your book offer kashrut substitutions or are the recipes that you shared kosher friendly?
Yes.
They're
Like
all.
in the biryani recipe, it's there. It tells you how to do it. We use a lot of, in all our cooking, we use a lot of coconut milk.
Mhm.
So instead of dairy, we use coconut milk, whether fresh or canned. It's coconut milk that saves us. So we can make those recipes. Okay.
Thank you. And there was a question about Jews of color or women of color that you use this term, and what does this exactly mean in this context?
Well, you're viewed as not white, of course, not Ashkenazi, okay? For example, when I was told you don't look Jewish, and I really couldn't understand what they meant by the fact that I don't look Jewish. And I couldn't get my head around it. And I finally decided I was doing a presentation to a all seniors group. And this one gentleman kept on saying, you don't look Jewish. No, there are no Jews in India. He kept interrupting. And in the end, I said to him, I've given this a lot of thought. And I've come to the conclusion that Jews are from the Middle East. And if we're from the Middle East, then we are sort of swarthy complexion, dark hair, dark eyes, just like the Arabs. Okay. And I said, but we, you know, I look at myself in the mirror and I think, you're not bad. You kind of fit the mold. But my husband, who's a little darker complexion, is much better. He fits the mold entirely. But then I said to the poor man, I said, but sir, if you can prove to me where the blonde hair and blue eyes come from in a in a in a Semitic group, then you can ask me to prove where my complexion and my hair color comes from. And I said, it's very silly. The whole thing is silly because we are such a small community worldwide. And for us to be, haggling and haggling over your skin color and what you look like, it seems so petty.
Thank you so much. I just want to say that there are a lot of comments and a lot of people sharing and congratulating and being interested. And unfortunately, we don't have time now to read everything, but we really appreciate you sharing with us about your book. And thank you, everyone, of course, for being here and your curiosity and questions and comments. We really appreciate it as well. Tomorrow we will send out a follow-up email in which you will receive Paushali's website where you can also find the book, and it's currently only on Amazon. There was again another question, so just want to answer again that yes, it's on Amazon. You can order it from there, and hopefully in due time it will also appear in other platforms. And we will also send you this recording. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but you will receive the recording of this talk so you can rewatch it, or you can also share it with friends or family if you'd like. So thank you everyone for being here, and thank you Anne and Paushali once again for being
Thank
here with
you.
us.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Dora and Sebastian. Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Have a
Dora.
wonderful rest of the
Fascinating.
day.
Thank you.